essay. So what I've done is I've highlighted in green the parts of your essay that I think go to the main idea or the thesis or the topic of the overall essay. And that is the development of your love for reading through being a participant in this battle of the books experience. I love that you have focused on something very particular. And so all of the green sentences that are highlighted have to do with kind of how the process went. And you'll notice that there's not a lot of green in this section here, but in the conclusion, I can see this again. Your main idea again about how reading is fun and something that you enjoy. I could also probably highlight the fact that, let's see if I can get this here, that that you find them to be entertaining and that it is an opportunity to learn and grow your knowledge, and that you continue to like reading, enjoy getting an education as much as you do currently if it weren't for that. So these are all the benefits of having participated in it. That's good. So in an essay, kind of typically, you want to start off with letting your reader know what the main idea of the essay is, in the introduction. Like in a traditional essay, you often give your thesis in the introduction, and then you again say it in the conclusion. It's not any different for the narrative essay. It's just that you do it a little bit, maybe not so pointedly as you would in an argument. So I would recommend that at the end, let's see, of your introduction, when you say that the Battle of the Books was an unforgettable experience that forever changed my opinion on reading and how I feel about reading, whether it is in the classroom or at home, that really I'm going to scroll down to the bottom, that really what you might want to consider amending that to is Battle of the Books forever changed my perspective of reading. It helped me to see that reading is fun, enjoyable, entertaining, and an opportunity to learn and grow. If you could say all of that up here also, as connected to this, it is much stronger than what you have here. It is a much more pointed thesis. And so I would use the language. Okay, so then we move into the body paragraphs. And what I'm going to be looking for is a hint that goes back to your thesis throughout the body. And it doesn't have to be explicit, but you should be continually reminding the reader what your message is. So the first thing I noticed is you've started a paragraph off with it. And that's not a good way to start. It is a pronoun, and there is no antecedent, which is the noun that it represents. It is, in this sense, this whole thing, and that's just too big for a paragraph. So I recommend that you delete this all started at, and just say, because you've already mentioned Grass Lake Elementary, I would just delete all of this right here and say Grass Lake Elementary was filled with neutral colored walls, short blended carpet, and children's art. It had a library that contains bookshelves that stretch high up to the ceiling, and tables and chairs. This is the place where my reading was ignited. Does that make sense? Like, what I'm trying to do is connect back to this main idea. So if you could use this sentence here to get us started, then you can go into the next idea, and this blue mark indicates that you need to start a new paragraph. As I walked in to the large library room, I felt anxious to compete against the other teams. So I would put a period here, or you could put a comma, and then you would insert a conjunction like and. I spot that there is a whiteboard, expo markers, and I think that expo would be capitalized. Whoops, that's not what I want to do. I think that you need to capitalize that because it's a particular brand name in a group at each table. Now, who are these people? And are they your classmates? I would specify and 4 of my classmates, or 4 students from other schools. You know, I'm not sure who those people are. So let the reader know who they are. As I make my way to my assigned table with my group members, I look back, I look towards the back of the room where it's not that you found, because you're looking, so you want to say that where I see teachers and some parents that chose to come and watch their children, okay? In the front of the room, there stands the librarian next to the smartboard and score sheet. Now, we've got this kind of in the which becomes a little bit redundant. So what you could do is something like, you know, in the front of the room, you could just switch the sentence around. The librarian, comma, standing next to the smartboard and score sheet is in the front of the room. Or the librarian stands in the front of the room next to the smartboard and score sheet, right? And then you could just completely leave out in the school library and just say, I hear the Jeopardy music, and people, maybe who are those people, and students sliding their whiteboards off the table, great detail, to wave them in the air, period. Okay? Because we want to have this become a stronger idea. My classmates enthusiastically say yes. Okay, so I would probably take off the ing. Under their breaths, meaning they got the correct answer. This reads like, oh, we've already started the competition, and when I'm reading up here, it reads like you're watching it as you make your way that it's going to get started. So you may need to give a little bit more information in between if the competition has already started. And then we have that in the library again, so I would maybe take that out. My strongest memory of during the Battle of the Books was the smell of the markers, the strong odor of the expo dry markers. Feelings of nervousness, disappointment, and sometimes excitement filled me inside. I'm not really sure what to do. This is not a great way to end a paragraph. I think that's more of a detail than it is a concluding sentence. And so I would maybe, maybe move that. As I make my way to my assigned table with my group members, I am filled with feelings of nervousness. Disappointment is kind of like, why are you disappointed? Are you worried about failing? Maybe is it more about worry and excitement? Does that make sense? Like a disappointment is like something that, at least the way I read it, is something that happens after the fact. Anyways, I'm talking too much. So I want you to watch this kind of, how you start your sentences up. So I had prepared for this moment for a while. Once again, I had prepared for the Battle of Books for a while. That's pretty, for how long? For how long? Was it months, weeks? How was it something that you started preparing for at the beginning of the year and then did at the end of the year? I don't know. You got to be more specific. You could consider me an expert. Okay, we don't ever want to use second person pronouns in academic essays, so you could do this whole thing like this. I had prepared for the Battle of Books for several months, and I felt that I needed to be responsible for knowing my books the best. I considered myself an expert on my reading assignments, okay? You just change that out. There wasn't much time to read in the classroom, so much of my preparation happened at home. After school, I would walk inside my home to see off-white carpets, a brown couch, with my books placed on them, and my dad and little sister. Okay. How about if you combine those two ideas? The living room, our living room, off-white carpets, a big brown, a brown couch covered with my books, and my dad and little sister. This is where I got most of my reading done, while Dad cooked dinner and my little sister played with her dolls. In my house, I would hear the pages of the book turning and my dad cooking dinner, and at home I would smell the food cooking. In my house, I feel warm and comfortable. Once again, I want you to do some combining. You've got in my house, you've got at home, and in my house. So, I read, you could do, instead of saying the living room is where I got most of my reading done, you could say, I read while Dad cooked dinner and my little sister played with her dolls. I could hear the pages of my book turning in contrast to the sizzle of Dad cooking at the stove and the smell of food. I felt comfortable and warm while I was reading. You want to connect back to reading, because what you're telling me is that you have fond memories, that this was a good time for you. So let's see, as we continue down. Okay, so right in, sorry, hope I'm not making you dizzy. Okay, right in here, when you're doing dialogue, this is great, but you do want to indent each line of dialogue as though it is its own paragraph. Does that make sense? If you look in books, you'll see it like that. Each line is going to look like little paragraphs, but you want to, in a little bit long, I want you to think about these phrases that you like to do. I would, I take, I continue, I used, I feel. There's a lot of I's in here. I now read, I would not, I did find love. This is a lot of redundancies, okay? Now, it's not that the information is bad, it just gives you a lot of place to combine. So for example, right here, before the Battle of the Books, I despised reading and would dread reading a book. But now it is something I enjoy, and I read in my free time. But now it is something I do in my free time. Okay, does that make sense? Books are entertaining and stories are fun. I would have hated all reading assignments given to me, but now I take it as an opportunity to learn and grow. Before the Battle of the Books, reading assignments were a drag. But now I see reading as an opportunity to learn and grow my knowledge. Do you kind of hear what I'm doing? I'm playing around with it. What I'm telling you is not perfect, but that's how you retool sentences. Okay, you've got all the ideas here, but now we just got to make it work better in terms of the flow of the paper, so that it doesn't read like a list. All right? Okay, I went too long, I'm sorry, but I hope that this helps out, and I appreciate your patience, and let me know if you have any other questions. And you can resubmit your final draft if you've already submitted it, if you want to add any of these suggestions. All right, take care. Bye.